Hello everyone, it's Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. I'm Stephanie Haney here with your top headlines from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Each day at 2 p.m. we do get the most updated numbers from the Ohio Department of Health, so we will start with those. We do have the new numbers for COVID-19 cases reported here in the state of Ohio, so we'll dive right in with those from the Ohio Department of Health. There are now a total of 16,769 reported cases of COVID-19 coronavirus here in the state of Ohio. So how that stacks up, that's 444 new cases from yesterday. Yesterday, we saw 362 new cases, so we see that number is very much still bouncing around. So from Sunday to Monday, we saw 362 new cases. From Monday to today, we're seeing 444 new cases. When we look at the number of deaths, the number of deaths is now 799. So from yesterday to today, there have been 46 new reported deaths. That's up from Sunday to Monday. From Sunday to Monday, we saw 25 new reported deaths. And as a reminder, these numbers are based on the expanded CDC definition. So these are not only confirmed positive cases of people who have been tested, but also people who have not been tested but are probably positive for COVID-19 and who probably died from COVID-19 based on a broader understanding and that expanded definition from the CDC. There are now a total of 3,340 people here in Ohio who have been hospitalized related to COVID-19, and 1,004 of those people have been in the intensive care unit. If we take a look at the U.S., these are based on the latest numbers reported by CNN. There are almost 995,000 cases of COVID-19 reported in the U.S. and a total of 56,749 deaths. Comparing that to the worldwide numbers, also as reported by CNN, there are almost 3,075,000 reported cases of COVID-19 worldwide and a total of 213,273 deaths worldwide. Now, I want to take this moment to address a comment in today's earlier live stream. Someone had commented that when I had made the comment that the U.S. has almost 1/3 of the worldwide known cases in the entire world. The point to make there is, yes, different countries are doing different levels of testing, but also we are working under an expanded CDC definition as well. So these numbers are not necessarily even people who have just tested positive for COVID-19 that we're talking about here. So the information is not meant to be misleading, but it is simply the information that we do have to work with from what countries are reporting, from what countries are doing with their testing. So that is the factual information. The U.S. has almost 1/3 of the known COVID-19 cases. Do we think that there may be more? That's what experts say. Experts say the number of COVID-19 cases, particularly people who have been asymptomatic, is something that we just don't know and can't know without mass scale testing. So I wanted to make that point off the top, and I do really appreciate the comments coming in. That's the point of doing this online, so that we can all engage and have that conversation. So I do appreciate people jumping in and being a part of that dialogue. Now, here in Ohio, Catholic bishops of Cleveland have extended suspension of masses and liturgies. The suspension of publicly celebrated masses and liturgies will continue through May 29th, with the hope of resuming in-person services during the weekend of May 30th and 31st. That's what they're hoping for. Here's what the bishops of Cleveland said in a statement. Out of deep concern for the common good, as well as the physical and spiritual well-being of all the people of Ohio, the Catholic bishops of Ohio have agreed once again to cooperate with the governor and to support and abide by the multi-phased approach to returning to work and eventual public gatherings in large groups. The bishops say they will begin to work with pastoral teams to consider reasonable, gradual, and responsible initiatives for welcoming people back to faith gatherings like Sunday Mass. They say in the meantime, parishioners can continue to participate in Sunday Mass by way of radio broadcast, television, or live stream options. Also, keep in mind, as of right now here in Ohio, we are abiding by the CDC guidelines of no gatherings of more than 10 people, and that includes even after May 1st, as Governor Mike DeWine's plan goes into place to gradually reopen the Ohio economy. Now, on the flip side of that, there are 100 Ohio pastors who are asking Governor DeWine to end the stay-at-home order now. This is a joint statement from the North Central Ohio clergy. It was addressed to DeWine last week. The clergy members did praise DeWine's handling of COVID-19 here in the state, but said that the economy needed to be opened in asking for the stay-at-home order to be taken out of effect at this time. The letter said this: while we know our state is not out of the woods yet during this outbreak, we understand there is a balancing act between protecting both our public health and our economic interests. We agree social norms must be adjusted even after the order expires to minimize COVID-19. Now, keep in mind that order was set to expire on May 1st, but DeWine did say yesterday that the order will be remaining in effect, just with those modifications based on the phased-in plan of reopening the state of Ohio. That was just yesterday that he rolled out the plan. And as a reminder, office meetings, general office business, is expected to be allowed to resume in some capacity on May 4th, and stores are allowed to open on the 12th. However, restaurants, gyms, and larger public gatherings will not be happening anytime in the near future, and people who do return to the office on May 4th will be required to wear facial coverings. People who do go to retail places and other service places starting May 12th, and also the people who work in those facilities, will be required to wear facial coverings. At the national level, Governor Mike DeWine's COVID-19 response is getting a lot of attention. There was another feature on DeWine in the New York Times this morning. So the Times writer Trip Gabriel called DeWine's actions proactive, bold decisions, and actually called him a household name. DeWine is a Republican, as we know, and Democrats are also taking notice of his leadership throughout the pandemic here in Ohio. The Times article quoted Democratic Mayor Nan Whaley of Dayton praising DeWine for his work with the state's Democratic mayors. And the Associate Director of Community Research Institute at Baldwin-Wallace College, Dr. Lauren Copeland, said this about DeWine: he doesn't sugarcoat anything, and he leans heavily on public health experts, including Dr. Amy Acton, our director of the Ohio Department of Health. Copeland went on to say, his apolitical, no-nonsense briefings have become Ohioans' go-to source for facts and reassurance. So we mentioned Dr. Copeland from Baldwin-Wallace's Community Research Institute because a poll released this week from Baldwin-Wallace College's Community Research Institute reported that 85% of Ohioans approve of how DeWine is responding to COVID-19 here in Ohio, and that includes the first total shutdown of the state school system. Ohio was the first state in order to do that. And 90% of people trust DeWine to give them accurate information in his daily press conferences happening at 2 p.m. Speaking of people who are getting praised, Dr. Anthony Fauci is praising Brad Pitt for portraying him on Saturday Night Live. That happened this weekend. Dr. Fauci thinks Brad Pitt did a great job with the performance, called him classy, and really appreciated it. His shout out to healthcare workers. It was an interview on Monday with Telemundo that Dr. Fauci, who is the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, said that he is a big fan of Brad Pitt. And it was a couple weeks ago, someone asked Dr. Fauci who he would rather portray him if he were to be portrayed in any capacity on the big screen or the small screen. And Dr. Fauci said between Ben Stiller and Brad Pitt, he would pick Brad Pitt. Didn't really say why at the time, so he said yesterday on Telemundo that he would pick Brad Pitt because he's a big fan of him. So we got some more insight into that there. And Fauci said he really respected what he did in the quarantine edition of SNL. This is the second at-home version of SNL. He said, I think that Brad showed that he's a classy guy when at the end he took off his hair and thanked Fauci and all the healthcare workers. He said he's not only a great actor, but a really classy person. Speaking of classy people, Cleveland native chef Michael Symon is providing relief to restaurant workers and guidance moving forward. He's teaming up with the app CAMEO, which, if you're not aware, the app CAMEO is a personalized shout-out service. You can pay a little bit of money and get a shout-out from a celebrity of your choice. For example, Cleveland Indians manager Terry Francona just joined CAMEO, so you can get a shout-out from him for, I believe the going rate there is $75. So Symon is teaming up with CAMEO to help raise money for Ohio Restaurant Association's Employee Relief Fund. So you can buy and purchase a customized greeting from Symon, and all of the proceeds will help support those in need today and also in the future. Symon says that he has seen as many as 3 in 10 restaurants that will be unable to reopen as a result of all of this. He went on to say a lot of restaurants are going to have a hard time reopening. I think unemployment, unfortunately, is going to be higher than we've seen in quite a bit. The more we can get that fund funded, the better chance some of these people have that are going to struggle. He's definitely right about that unemployment number. Here in the state of Ohio, we get those new numbers every Thursday. We've seen record numbers here, higher numbers in the last month and a half than we've seen in the last 2 years. So Simon definitely knows what he's talking about when he's talking about unemployment, specifically here in Ohio, but across the country. Simon also said it's going to be a learning curve. You can open up at 25%, 50%, 75%, 100% restaurant capacity, and just going from there. So he's talking about helping give guidance to these restaurant owners who maybe don't necessarily know what it looks like to open at a smaller capacity than their full capacity that they're used to. So we'll be following what Simon does with that, as he's now teamed up with CAMEO to help fund that relief effort. And here's another reminder, today is primary election day. It was supposed to be St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, but the polls were closed under a public health order that said it was not safe for them to close, and we were at that time limiting the number of people who were allowed to be in public gatherings. Yesterday was the last day to postmark your ballot. There is no in-person voting today. It's all mail-in ballots, all drop-off ballots. So check in with your local board of elections. If you did not mail your mail-in ballot yesterday, you can still drop that off at your local board of elections. So check in with them to see what their procedures are. Many of them do have secure locations outside, for example, in the parking lot, like is the case in the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections, so that you can drop things off without contact and be as safe as possible. So we do expect those results in by 7:30 p.m. tonight. You can follow along as those results come in, wkyc.com/elections. We do know something a lot of people have been talking about. Former Vice President Joe Biden is the presumptive Democratic nominee to run for the presidency in 2020, as President Donald Trump is the presumptive Republican nominee who will run as an incumbent, most likely, to compete against Biden and anyone else who enters the race as an independent or otherwise affiliated person. But there are other things on the ballot as well: school levies, property taxes, judgeships, state and local offices. So if you haven't got your ballot in, you do have another opportunity throughout the rest of the today to drop that off at your county board of elections. And again, wkyc.com/elections to follow our coverage of that as those results roll in tonight. All right, next up, we will have more coverage for you on what's new at 5 p.m. I'll see you there. Also at 6 p.m. on What Matters Most, 7 p.m. on Front Row, and 11 p.m. on What's Next. Governor Mike DeWine's press conference is underway right now. You can find that on Facebook and YouTube, as well as wkyc.com and our WKYC app. And I will see you back here tomorrow morning on Wednesday at 11 a.m. I'm Stephanie Haney. I'll see you back tomorrow.